No matter what the people on the Hill told the congresswomen and men while they were giving their testimony, that information was not meant for other eyes to see. I don't care if their incompetence said, no, this was not. Yes, it was. And because you were accidentally added to the chat and not the entire members of Congress and not all the Americans in the world, and not because we had a camera sitting in a room where they were creating these various decisions, that should have given you clear evidence that you should not have released this information. Because regardless of what they said, your common sense let you know that, look, I don't even need to be a part of this conversation. And there was a reason for that, because no American, unless you're in the military, you have security clearances, has any business knowing that information. And some of those people who were even in that chat, I'm questioning their level of security clearances to even have access to that type of information. Because just because you have a security clearance doesn't mean you have access to everything. There are different layers of security clearances that people receive for a purpose. Just because you're sitting in a seat in an administration doesn't mean that you don't have alternative motives. We don't know half of these people sitting in these positions anyway, regardless of that fact. Now that our enemies know this information, they're able to process how we're thinking. They're able to see what type of weather conditions we like. They're looking at how we choose certain weaponry for certain strikes, whether it's people, places, or things. They're looking at our artillery. They're looking at our mindset. And now they can create scenarios and utilize a variety of different combinations of threats and situations to now analyze how we can project they would proceed in warfare when they're focusing on certain targets. And if they know what we have and what we don't have, now they can strategize against our military, because they have now gotten into the mind of how we proceed with doing attacks when we feel the need to do them. There was no wisdom in that. A military strategist will take this information and they will create a variety of contingency plans. They could probably put this in an AI program and ask AI, look, if this were to happen and this was China, how would they attack China based on this information? How would they attack Russia based on this information? How would they attack North Korea based on this information? How would they attack Canada or Greenland or Panama or Mexico or anybody? They can take that information and turn it into a predictive type outcome. Meaning, if this is possible, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. And if they only have this X amount of artillery and they're doing this, then this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. That's why you cannot give information to everyone. That's why some people need to be hired for what they know and not what they look like and who they're connected to. This is why when you're in the military and you know these missions are top secret, and if you've been doing any type of research as a reporter or a journalist, you should have had enough common sense not to put this out. You have now fumbled the bag. What the Russians could or didn't know, they may not have gotten all the information. The Koreans may not have gotten all the information. The Chinese may not have gotten all the information, but now you have given them that. You have played into a game that you probably didn't realize that you were in. How do you not know that this was a setup for someone to see how far they will go? Now, what can they argue? Oh, you can't trust the journalists when they get information. So now they'll say anyone who gives information that's perceived to be a detriment to America, now they can be held under the Espionage Act. Because guess what they might still decide to do? They might still try to come for you, bro. Because they still feel like, regardless, you weren't supposed to be a part of the chat and you should release that information. They're going to come for you, bro. They're going to come for you. They're going to find a way to come for you. And I'm still believing that. I don't know if this was so much of an accident. I'm thinking this was an opportunity for them to begin to assault the First Amendment rights of the basic fundamentals of our Constitution when it comes down to freedom of the press. Because now they're going to say, well, when you have the freedom of the press and then you have this, then now what? That's affecting our national security. So now they're going to put limits on people. Now they're going to start saying, well, whoever you got that information from, if you don't reveal them, you're going to jail. You have to think this crap through before you do it, because they're 30 steps ahead of you. They laid back with their approach about what type of information was in this, seeing what you were going to do with it. I honestly think they made a mistake, but then they had a plan of action after the fact that you fell for. And you don't even realize it. You fell for it. That's what you don't understand. That's why you can't play with people. Even though they're not the brightest and the best, they are still some type of vindictiveness, and they're just conniving in some form or some fashion. Everything is a setup. Whether it was in the beginning, it eventually becomes a setup. It becomes an arguing point. Shouldn't have done it, bro. Shouldn't have done it.